The passage is about clinal variation. It is the changes in the features of species influenced by environmental and geological changes. The professor elaborates on this by giving two examples of sparrows and elephants. Sparrows in South America have smaller bodies than their counterparts in North America as the temperature is higher in South America. That's the reason the sparrows have big bodies in Northern America. The second example of elephants, which differs in both India and Africa. African elephants have big ears to keep their body cooler by constant flapping it because Africa is hotter than India. So, because of the environmental change, there is a change in the clinical variation. The passage is about founder effect, when animals or species are separated from large groups and create their own new population. As this population is smaller in size, they reduce various genetic variation, which is acceptable to the environment. The professor gives an example of xanthanum species, those are the seeds found on the Australian continent. Because of the transmission of wind and ocean currents, these seeds are transported to small and little islands of Australia. Because of that, they develop small in size to adapt to the new environment. The passage is about sunk cost, which is investing money despite knowing that these funds are unrecoverable. The professor gave a real life example of the use of products because of the value of it and not discarding it, thus increasing their losses. By giving an example of vacuum dryer, the professor states that the vacuum is costlier but has got a small filter which needs replacing again and again. So the consumer to use the product to its value, they do not throw it out because it is waste of money, and thus they waste their time replacing the filters, which is not worth discarding the vacuum. The passage is about strategic alliance, which is an agreement between companies to benefit both by achieving the mutual goals. These companies do it in many ways, for example, sharing the resources. The professor gave an example of a company which is into cocoa and chocolate manufacturing named by Barry Calibert. The company made a collaboration with a Japanese company named Marinaga, and doing this, the company was able to access the 10,000 customers base of the Marinaga company, while the Marinaga company was able to get the updated information on chocolate manufacturing techniques. Thus, both the companies were mutually benefited by getting into a strategic alliance. The lecture is about the photography in an art and history class. The professor explains that photography, after the development, the paintings has been taken for granted, which, however, did not exist in the 19th century. People used to paint before in the 19th century. The professor also elaborates on the effects of photography on the paintings. After the development of photography, the paintings have been pushed towards abstraction. By giving an example of human face, the professor elaborates saying that the human face can be drawn with green color to show jealousy. The second effect on paintings by photography is like photos clicked by camera are used as tools. For example, giving the horse leg movement, it can be captured by the camera and later can be carved on the marble. The lecture is on an astronomy class. The lecturer describes that the scientists today believe that a permanent presence of human is possible on moon and Mars. However, it is highly unlikely that a human settlement can be possible on Venus. She elaborates the reasons why it's not possible. First of all, Venus received very little sunlight. 60% of the sunlight is reflected back by the dense clouds, and there is a dense layer of CO2 in the environment of the Venus, which further reduces the sunlight. Because of the lack of sunlight, it would be not possible to use solar panels to generate electricity. Additionally, there is no water vapor in the atmosphere, and water and oxygen should be supplied from the earth. So it would be an expensive affair to set up permanent settlement on Venus. The lecture is on the ritualization, which is the behavior of species doing the same activity. This ritualization behavior is commonly found in the animal kingdom, which they live by their instinct. By giving the example of male birds, the professor elaborates that the male birds, to attract for mating, create a complex courtship ritual relationship by decorating their nest or by songs and dances. The another example the professor gave was about the dogs, which would growl and raise its lips to defend their territory. So, ritualization is to identify their own species and to communicate with other species. The lecture is about parasitism, the small parasites that live on host, and sometimes they harm the host but does not kill it. However, the host provide the required nutrition to the parasites to grow. By giving an example of mistletoe trees, the professor elaborates that the seeds of these flowering plants are transferred to the trees by the birds, and in return the trees provides water and nutrition. However, this mistletoe flowers does not initially depends on its own. However, when their roots reaches the conductive tissues of the tree, they start using minerals and waters from the tree. Giving another example of fleas on the dogs, the professor states that the fleas consumes the dog's blood but does not kill the dog. However, it creates an itching effect, so the dogs always itch around their necks.